Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lane One Making Waves. This week on the podcast, we have former University of Florida Gator Natalie Hinds. Natalie is a Tokyo Olympian. She is an Olympic medalist, 19-time All American, 2-time world champion, but that doesn't even scratch the surface of everything that she's been able to accomplish both in the water and also out of the water. Within our conversation, she opens up about the highs of her competitive career, the challenges of retirement, and the often messy but meaningful process of rediscovering yourself outside of sport. From performance to purpose, structure to adaptability, she doesn't hold back. So, whether you're a former athlete, current athlete, a coach, or just someone navigating a shift in your life, this episode will have something for you. So, with that, let's dive in. I wanted to take a second to thank Natalie for joining me on the podcast today. You have an incredible resume when it comes to swimming and also all of your accomplishments outside of the water as well. But just to start, I'd like to touch on your very beginning in the sport. So, how did you first get involved in swimming and what drew you to swimming initially?
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. I'm super excited. Thinking back so long ago when I started swimming, our neighbors had a backyard pool. We did not. And like in the summer months, my mom, who knew how important it was for my sister and I to swim, she would always take us over there to like play around. And my sister's like 5 years older than me, and she was on the swim team. And I just remember always having to be dragged out of the pool, and we would go every day, and I couldn't wait, and I always wanted to hop the fence. And so with that, my mom had me in lessons, and when you have an older sibling, you just want to do what they do. So that was part of it as well. And I think I found a ribbon from maybe like mm, age 6, I would say. And so it's been a long time that I've been swimming, but I think at the age of honestly like 8, I kind of took it for my own, like
Yeah.
really loved it. And that's kind of how it started and where it came from.
No, I find so many swimmers have such similar experiences with the sport that
Yeah.
we were the ones kind of being dragged to the pool by our older sisters or by our older siblings or one of our friends, someone involved in the sport, and then we kind of take it a little bit too far and then make
Yeah.
it our own.
Yeah. Before
Uh,
we knew it, we're swimming in college. So,
yeah, before you know it, you're like, wait, this is a difficult sport.
right, right. Yeah.
Was there a specific moment early on where you realized it could be more than just a fun hobby? Swimming might be something that you pursue in the future.
So there wasn't really like a moment where I was like, I can do this. I think it was just over time, of conversations with my parents, like, okay, like I'm really good at this.
Mhm.
I like keep winning. I'm having fun. Obviously, you're having fun if you're winning. And this was at like the city level,
Yeah.
surrounding areas like Lubbock, which was like 2 hours away. And so I think at age 10 was when or excuse me, age 12 was when my parents and I were like, okay, like we're gonna start to go to Dallas and we're gonna start to go to Houston and we're gonna start
Yeah.
to like go to circuit meets and things like that. So probably age 12 was when I was exposed to like being a small fish in a big pond,
Hmm.
and that's really when I was like, no, I want to do this. Like I'm
Yeah.
getting my butt whooped right now, but I still want to do it. And it just kind of made me hungry for more.
Yeah, no, it's crazy kind of going from summer league swimming to age group swimming, and then you do realize how many levels to swimming there are and how far you can take it.
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it is overwhelming. But then also when you have someone that is motivated and you can obviously tell that from a young age, like it was something that you wanted to be successful at, you're like, the sky's the limit. Like,
Yeah.
put me in the water more, let's go.
Yeah, yeah, especially when I was very blessed. Like looking back on my career now that I'm done, there's like so many things you realize. And as a
Mhm.
kid, you're just a kid, obviously. Like
Yeah.
I've had a lot of talks about diversity in the sport and have I had any experience with that? And like when I look back, I wasn't even worried about that. I just wanted to win.
Yeah.
And I was thankfully very talented at a young age and didn't really have to deal with like the other things like nutrition, mental mindset, all of that until I was older and the talent kind of like reached its limit where I started to have to like do other things. So
Yeah.
like as a kid, my parents were like, okay, we're going to Dallas. Okay, cool. Like I'm gonna swim there. I want to go best time. Like the goal was always the same.
Yeah.
I think when you start to get older and you get distractions and other things pulling you in other ways, are you like, okay, do I love this sport or is it just convenient, you know?
No, you do start to kind of question. I know there are multiple times, especially during college, where you may hit plateaus or you have a meet that you may be discouraged at. You're like, did I reach my peak? Like, is there
Yeah.
something else out there that's calling me? But
Yeah, for
at the
sure.
end of the day, like, I think we all, I mean, even now, I've been retired from the sport for like 6 years now. Like I look at the pool and I see my brother competing this week and I'm like, I could do that. Like I want to go back,
Mhm.
like put me in the water. So it does kind of show that we're always drawn back to it in some capacity.
Yeah, 100%.
You've competed at the highest levels. You went to the Olympic Games in Tokyo. You have 5 world championship medals. You have 20 NCAA All-American titles. What's a single race or a moment that kind of stands out to you as a highlight within your career?
I find that question hard to answer because I feel like my journey is very unique and it's one where I thought I was done competing, but I
Yeah.
wasn't, and I'm always have been a late bloomer. And so I would say like my number one most favorite race, I guess, was obviously swimming at the Olympics. Like that's crazy because
Yeah.
that, like a very small amount of people get to do that.
Mhm.
And the whole time was like a fever dream. I feel like a lot of times we feel like we don't belong. A lot of times we feel like we are having imposter syndrome. But to be honest, that was like honestly one of the first times where I was like, nope, I deserve to be here. Like I've done everything that I can and more. So I think I raced that race with truly nothing to lose. And it was really nice to feel like that and for it to work out the way that it did. So I would say that's my favorite race. Um, I would say most memorable race was probably my semifinals at trials. Because there was like a calmness that I felt where I was like, I can do this. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm in my like emergency, like my body's in emergency state because you're just as you know, Olympic trials is just crazy. And
Yeah.
so, but
Constant fight or flight.
constant. And so, with that, even with that, like in the back of my mind, there was this calmness of like, you know what you're doing that I haven't had before. And so I feel like I just really peaked at the right time and I was ready to peak at that time too. It wasn't like I was too young. Like I was old enough to know. So I would say semifinals of trials, like going first into finals. That was very memorable. I would say a runner up to my most exciting races in my career just because there was all calmness that just kind of was with me throughout trials. Obviously, I was super nervous as we all are. But I knew I was prepared, and it was finally so nice to like peak at a meet like that because it's like 80% of people add.
Yeah.
And I was having the meet of my life, and I was like really able to like not let myself get too high or get too low. And so for me, I'm dramatic. Like I'm very hot and cold, especially when it comes to my feelings, because I just want to win. But I was really proud of like all of the preparation, the nutrition, the mental toughness, all of that, like that accompanied my swimming. And so that's kind of memorable because it finally all worked out at the very perfect time.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand how rare that actually is.
Yeah.
I know I was a super anxious swimmer when I was a kid. I was super confident because winning is kind of all you know at that age group level. If you're fast young, it's very easy to go into a race and feel confident. But then when I went to
Yeah.
college and you're surrounded by all of these fast swimmers, you can start to develop that self-doubt and that anxiety that then creeps into your races. And so yeah, I completely resonate with that. There's probably only like 2 moments where I felt calm before
Yeah.
stepping on the blocks. Like I had to have
Yeah.
music in, I had to be distracted. Uh,
Yeah. It
but
definitely is fewer and farther in between as you get
mm,
older and as like the level of your swimming like keeps climbing. It's you really have to train other things other than going to swim practice and
yes,
just doing what you're asked. So those are definitely two of my favorite races that I've had.
yeah, no, there's so many skills needed outside of just being a good swimmer that help elevate like people to the top level like yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you were part of a historic all black podium at NCAA's. How did that moment impact you personally, and what do you think it represented for the sport?
So I've been asked this question before, and
Yes.
I always apologize before I answer because truly in the moment I couldn't even tell you because
Mhm.
we weren't done swimming the meet yet, and we still all had like the 400 freestyle relay, um and to be honest, I was like super upset that I was third, and like because in swimming, I feel like maybe we didn't realize what type of achievement that we were able to like give to the Black community because we were the first. And so
Yeah.
like when you're the first, I feel like you're just grinding and grinding and with water's obviously not discriminatory. So for all of us, I know is true like that's we just swim. Like we weren't worried about like who are we racing. Like I just wanted to win. And so now that I'm older and I look back and as time has passed, what a crazy achievement, truly.
Mhm.
I feel like I don't know when it's gonna happen again, and I'm very grateful that I'm part of that. I think for the sport, it definitely represented a milestone.
Mhm.
And even now, you see more Black and brown people in the sport. You're seeing them at higher levels, and you're starting to see them in finals and like at NCAAs, you're starting to see them in B finals and on finals relays. And so, slowly but surely, I feel like you are seeing it more. You're seeing a little bit more diversity in this predominantly white sport. And it really starts like targeting them as kids because
Yeah.
like I said earlier, like there are so many distractions, especially within the Black community. It's like not only is there basketball and football and track, but there's also like the element of hair, the element of history of like Black people don't historically swim. And so there's just a lot on your shoulders as a Black person in this sport. And so for us to do that, I feel was like, oh, like such a nice deep breath of air because it's like, oh no, we can do this and we can do
Yeah.
it very well. And so if we can do it, there's more that can after us, and I'm starting to see more. So like makes me very happy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you touch on something that I think a lot of swimmers can resonate with. It's like in the moment, you really don't understand what you're accomplishing because
Yeah.
we're so focused on going to the next event, going to the next practice. Okay, what am I eating for dinner? Like what time I'm going to wake up the next morning. To where it does maybe take like a couple years after you're done with the sport to truly see the accomplishments that you had and the impact that you have on the broader community and also just globally and nationally on the swimming world as a whole. So it's just
Yeah.
absolutely incredible to, I mean, I'm also dramatic, so like when I say I get chills, like I have chills right now, just like
Oh,
hearing
thank you.
about that moment. Um,
Yeah.
but who were some of the most influential figures throughout your swimming journey? I know a lot of us look up to our coaches, or maybe it was your older sister. Who was someone that kind of impacted you positively throughout the sport?
Um, for this question, I was like raised, not like you can't have idols, but I was raised to like understand that everyone is a person at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And whether that's like, I'm not like being mean or anything, but I do have a memory of like I was at Irvine. It was my first nationals. I'm like 14 or 15 years old. I'm adding time. I'm not a key player at this nationals, but I do remember going into the locker room and seeing, I think like Mary DeSenza or someone
Yeah.
like some crazy like someone at their peak. She was like an amazing 200 butterflyer.
Hmm.
And I remember like my dad came with me to that meet and I remember telling him like, "Oh my God, guess who I saw?" And he was like, "Oh, well, what was she doing?" I was like, "Oh, she was just like going to the bathroom and changing to her suit or something." He was like, "Okay." And was there anything crazy about what she was doing? I was like, "No." He's like, "Okay." She's or I think I said she's putting her suit on. He was like, "Okay, well, did she like was there anything crazy about it?" I was like, "No, no, no." And he was like, "Okay, well, she's just like you."
Yeah.
And I think from that moment on, like I would say I look up to my dad in short, but he always kept it very level with me.
Hmm.
Whether I did good, whether I did bad, you can always count on my dad to be the chill guy.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, I look up to him because he's come through a lot of adversity. He grew up in Alabama. Um, rural Alabama, and he's self-made, and I appreciate his demeanor and like my parents were hard on me, but like in a very kept me responsible way. Like we had talks about my goals and say there's a day I didn't want to go to practice. Okay, if you don't want to go to practice, then don't go. But at the end of the season, if I didn't reach said goals, they
Hmm.
were the first to bring up like, okay, well, you didn't go to this, to that, So they really like kept me responsible for what I wanted to achieve, and like I had to understand like I had to sacrifice to get there.
Mhm.
And they were really good at guiding me that way. They were never those helicopter parents. They were never down on deck yelling. They were always in the shadows, which I appreciated.
So,
So I would definitely say my dad, my mom, but definitely my dad because he traveled with me everywhere. He was with me at trials when I made my t he was with me at trials when I did not make the team. And he was with me at trials when I finally made it. And so it was just a great moment. Um, and besides him, I look up to Maritza Correa when she was swimming. Her last name's McClendon now. Colin Jones, Caitlin Sandino. I had them plastered on my door from like cutting out of Splash magazine. Um, and truly, when I got older, I looked up to my younger self
hmm.
because when you're young, like you said earlier, like you're not worried about anything. You're just trying to win. You're very direct. It's point A to point B. Like, how am I going to get there? And as you get older, there's distractions, there's doubt, there's like, other things that need your attention. And so, as a professional swimmer, I think when I got overwhelmed, as you do, I always thought about like, okay, this is who I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for like the 6-year-old girl who would like scrape up her knees at recess and
Yeah.
then run to the car and go to practice and like have her cap and goggles on in the car and just be like so excited. So definitely my dad, um, and those three swimmers and myself as a kid because it was
Yeah.
just, yeah. So I get inspiration from like I guess a lot of places, but those are my top 4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have as many like revenues of inspiration as you can. And it's so important to have like a balanced parent in the sport, which I don't think a lot of people talk about, is you do have to have someone that's going to tell it to you straight, but also someone that's supportive and believes in you. So there's never any doubt
Yeah,
that your dad knew that you could accomplish the highest level of the sport. But it's also, as you said, important to have someone that's like, if you're not going to go to practice or if you're going to slack off or do other things, that goal, it's not going to be as easy or it might become out of reach. And so I'm also
right.
thankful to my parents because they kind of my dad has a similar demeanor where it's you can quit
Hmm.
at any time and like we'll be fine and we'll support you. But this was your goal and just being reminded
Right.
of that.
Yeah, they always are good at like I imagine my parents as like the gutter ball, like the lanes. When
Yeah.
you the kiddie lanes, it's like they're there if you need them, but you know what the goal is to get a strike. So I'm glad that you had similar parents too, because
Yeah.
I've seen helicopter parents and I'm just like and like in Texas, obviously it's a big swimming state. So I've seen like 10 and unders people I competed with all the way up until college. And it's like I've seen them regress, but I
Yeah.
knew what type of like environment they had. They were really good when they were young. They had really involved parents on deck. They were timing, back when like they called for timers and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to like kind of see that pattern progress as you get older of whose parents were like what kind of demeanor did they have and like how did that translate as their child got older.
Yeah, no, it takes a community and it takes a village to raise raise a kid in general, but also to raise an athlete. Kind of moving on to swimming and how difficult, swimming actually is. Swimming is known for its grind. You're doing doubles, you're in the weight room, you're seeing psychologists, nutritionists, early mornings, intense periods of training. What kept you going through those tough seasons, both physically and mentally?
That's a good question. I think before I was a pro, it just was the thing to do. Like my identity was a swimmer, so like I was gonna do it. Um, I went to the University of Florida that's known for grinding and it's known for like doing more than everyone else, whether that's yardage, whether that's dry land, whether that's getting up earlier. Like our schedule sometimes was so crazy and sometimes it really, really upset me that how crazy it was, but other times I fall back on that now in my life, and I'm like, if I could do that, I literally could do anything. And as a professional, it was a little different because like in college, you're like early 20s, late teens, you're just doing what you're told. You've bought into the fact that like I am a swimmer, I'm a college swimmer, I'm a student athlete. Like this is, they're asking me to do this, this is just what I do.
Yeah.
As a professional, it's a little different, especially the way that I came back into the sport on my own volition with my own goals. So I feel like what kept me going was those goals. Like I always had that in the back of my mind and was always trialing and erring like my routine, the way I'm approaching this race, the way I'm doing this and that. And like it takes time. Like my professional career was 5 years and it would have been four without COVID, but I was not ready in 4 years. And I was, obviously COVID changed our whole life, but for me, I was grateful that I had COVID because I needed another year to figure it out. And so what kept me going was like it's a never-ending puzzle. And some of that is really cool because you can get to success and I guarantee you all the people who made the Olympic team that year, we all got there very different ways. Some of us barely made it, some of us made it by a mile. Some of us didn't have that plan. I know Gunnar Bentz made it and he already had summer plans. And I'm like, wow, to like have that situation is crazy where someone like me, I'm like going back and forth, like if I don't make this team, I'm gonna lose it. And then the flip side of that's like I've done everything I can. So if I don't make this team, like it's just not in the cards for me. So what kept me going was just the end goal. The end goal
Yeah.
was to make the team. And obviously I got so much more than just making the team. And I'm very grateful for that. And um yeah, and it's cool to look back because there's a goal, obviously. But once you hit the goal and you like get to the top of the mountain and you look back, you're like, wow, the journey was amazing. Like the
Yeah.
person I was when I started, when I moved to Athens in my car and just moved into an apartment like in downtown Athens and, on a Saturday and started going to practice on a Monday, like I did not know what kind of journey I was about to go on. So it's
Mhm.
really cool to look back and be like, there was growth here and it was
Yeah.
really cool to see and I can take those nuggets that I learned throughout the rest of my life.
Yeah, and in the moment, it's so difficult to see that because you're so focused on the goal and the end result that you look back when you're done and over the course of like a 20-year career, you're like, you started when you were 6 years old in that little pool. And that's truly when that journey started.
Yeah.
And everyone has such a different path, whether it's retiring from the sport and coming back, what college they choose, what events they choose, where they grew up swimming. But there
Mhm.
is that ultimate goal that most swimmers I talk to want to achieve, and that is the driving force that kind of you keep resonating back to.
Yeah.
And you spoke on your college time and how when you're a college swimmer, your identity is so tied into that program. I know I can resonate with that. You wake up with the same like routine every morning. You wake up at 5 a.m., you go to practice, you go to lift, you go to eat, you go to school, and then you go to practice, and then you go to
Yeah.
bed. And so
Yeah.
um, during your time as a college swimmer, how did that influence your identity both as an athlete and as a leader?
Um, I think I don't know what came first though. Like my parents are very routine oriented. Like I could tell you right now what my dad is doing, and I don't even have to like text him because he's such a routine person. Always has been that way. That's how our family operates. And so that's kind of where a routine mindset came. So in theory, like being a swimmer and being at a D1 college, swimming at a high level, like you have to have a routine. There's like literally no other way. And so it was my identity. Like, this is what I do. This is where I have to go. Like, I have to go to study hall now. And like, I'm okay with that because I enjoy a routine. I like
Yeah.
feel very calm when I know what's coming. I don't like change that much. I've had to teach myself to like let things go when they change and I don't like it. But um, it just allowed me to, it reinforced like how important a routine is. It reinforced the importance of like on the flip side of that, it reinforced the importance of knowing a lot of different people. So like for example, swimming is like a cult. Like everyone knows everyone and it's really easy to stick within your your team because you know each other. You spend so much time together. So like at dinner, it's like I'm gonna go sit with my team.
Yeah.
And at Florida, we were blessed to have like our own training table. It's called training table where you eat. And so it's only athletes and um so whenever everybody would come in, you could tell like what teams were where because everybody just sat with their team. My sophomore year, I was planning on moving off campus, and my parents foresaw that I needed to focus more. So they were like, "You're staying on campus." Meanwhile, everybody moved off campus, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is so lame." Thinking about it now, that was like truly my favorite year
Yeah.
ever. I did not swim the best, but what I did learn that year, I lived with three other people, all from different sports
Oh,
on
wow.
campus. So it was like first, it was very uncomfortable because I was like, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
But then you learn to like branch out and like eat with other people, learn about other sports, go to a different sporting event. Like, so it was really the beginnings of just diversifying how I talk to people. You know, everybody's got different things going on. We all had different stressors depending on our sport. So that really kind of helped the leadership qualities that I have now because everyone's different and
Mhm.
everyone has to be met where they're at and for you to get the best out of everyone, you have to kind of um you have to have variety in how you approach people and how you
Yeah.
deal with them and stuff and like what makes them tick. So that definitely kind of that year taught me about there's more out there than just swimming. Like you're an athlete, but there's more out there than just being a swimmer and a student. So yeah, that was a long-winded way to say that routine in college and also my sophomore year specifically really helped me like just come out of my comfort zone a little bit more.
Yeah, it's so eye-opening to talk to athletes of other sports and even in
Yeah,
college when you're so rooted in being an athlete and you talk to, classmates who aren't involved in athletics and you hear about their lives and their journey and what's important to them. And it is so eye-opening because swimming is a sport where you have to be all in, otherwise most of the time it doesn't work out. And
right.
so having those experiences while you were still swimming is incredible because a lot of people don't have those experiences until they're done and they have to figure out kind of who they are outside of
Mhm.
the swimmer.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very grateful. And some of us, like I'm gonna be in one of their weddings
Oh, yay.
next year. So it's really cool just to like see where we've come from. Like,
Yeah.
you know, asking our parents for money in the dorms. And now we're like, she's like an amazing, she works in Atlanta and she's like in sales for a medical device company and just killing it. And so I'm just so proud of like the growth that we've had.
Yeah. No, it's incredible to look at past teammates and current teammates because it doesn't even feel like they're past teammates. I mean, they'll always be like
Yeah,
teammates and
it's like
just,
frozen in time for sure.
yeah, and seeing where they are in life. I mean, some of them are having kids, some of them are like CEOs, and we're all over the place, but you still have
Yeah.
that connection.
Mhm. Yeah.
Looking back now, how did swimming shape your character and values beyond just a performance?
That's a good one. I would say, how did it shape my character? It taught me to finish everything.
Hmm.
Um, and it taught me to kind of slow down and understand things better. I'm a very quick person. Like, I don't have patience. I do not, I do not plan well. Like, I'm very much exposing myself, but I do not naturally plan well. And so, I'm a trial and error person. I look at something, I skim it, and then I try it. And if it doesn't work, I'll back up and try something else. Whereas, like, my dad, I'm like my mom, but my dad, for instance, will look at something, analyze it, pick a plan, try that plan, and it most likely all the time works.
Yeah.
Swimming has taught me that my way does not work. And I think I can take that with me. That's one of those nuggets I was talking about earlier that I can take with me into the rest of my life. Like, I have to practice patience and I need to be more analytical about things. It's really taught me that, like swimming at the highest levels, like everyone can swim fast, everyone can hit a 1.2 tempo, but it's like, what tempo works best for Natalie? And those were things I learned after COVID. It was like I had this epiphany of these weird small details that applied to me and no one else. And I kind of just found confidence in who I was and knowing that I'm not like anyone else.
Mhm.
Um, so swimming has taught me to be more analytical. It has taught me to finish everything that I start.
Yeah.
Um, and it has taught me that if I'm going to do something, it has to be 100%. It can't be, like you said, it can't be like 80% in and out. And those things are really important. There's so many parallels from between swimming and like your real life. And those are definitely some that you can take with you as you grow older.
Yeah, no, it's crazy sometimes in like my work day. I'm like, why am I feeling anxious? And it's like I look at the clock and it's like, oh, it's 3 p.m. and it'd be like a mile day. And so, you know,
Yeah.
some of those lessons that you learn in swimming, like you said, they never go away, but they creep up on you.
You definitely have to. There's a period though, because
Mhm.
you have to understand like how to reframe them in a different setting, like in a
Yes.
work setting or whatever. So it's always going to be a journey. I feel like that's part of what you learn as an adult is like there's always something to do
Yeah.
and work on personally, and like it's kind of tiring, but it is what it is.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a process and everything in the sport. Later on in life, you realize how impactful it is. And kind of moving into retirement and that mindset shift, you have written so powerfully about your transition out of swimming. Highly recommend going to Natalie's LinkedIn and reading her most recent blog posts. So I would like to talk about the first moment when your goggles came off. Did you know it was going to be your last race and what was going through your head?
Um, I kind of did, and I was really sad, but I was like, you're never gonna be not sad leaving the sport, whether you know it's coming or you don't. Um, my last race was like an Orlando sectional, and going into it, I was like, I don't really like feel that fire that I had felt.
Yeah.
So like at the end, I think it was like the 100 free or something like that. I swam prelims and I was like, I didn't feel anything. And that's when I know. Like I've had that feeling before. And I've always said like post Olympics, like I'm gonna swim until I'm not having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And it just like wasn't having fun. Obviously, if you're not swimming fast, you're not having fun. Like there's so many other things that were going on. But at the end of the day, I was sad, yes, very heartbroken. But I was like, what else do I need to do?
Mhm.
Like, I just wanted to go to the Olympics. I got so much more than that. I got to compete in the International Swim League. I got a medal from the Olympics. Went to two different worlds, got medals from them. Finally swam in a world's final, which was like my next goal after the Olympics, and was able to do that. I'm like, so what else is there? Like,
Yeah.
so it was sad, but it also was like, if I didn't make the Olympics or do any of those things and was having this thought, yeah, I would be like inconsolable, but I was okay.
Yeah.
It took me a little bit, but I was like the initial like, okay, I am done. I'm like, okay, so is that it? Like I'm just done.
It's
So,
such a weird
but
moment.
yeah, it is because you're like, okay, well, I'm done.
You're like,
Like,
I
what are
don't
you
have
supposed
to
to
go
say
to
after that?
practice. Like,
Right. I'm like, okay, well, I left the pool after talking to my coaches that next week um and it was crazy because when people started finding out, I got so much love. Everyone was like,
oh,
"Congratulations!" And internally, part of me was like, I'm failing or whatever. I'm very hard on myself, as we all are. But everyone, like from a different perspective, is like, you've done so much. You literally came back to the sport and we're so successful. But yeah, you leave the coach's office and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go home. I don't need to stuff my face when I get home. I don't have to set an alarm. Like,
yeah.
so it's really a bizarre feeling, but I knew like after that 100 free, I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I'd already been thinking about it. I'd had some like health issues before, and I was like, I'm not willing to like continue this struggle,
Yeah.
just to swim. So yeah, it was definitely a feeling of like, what is going on?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think there's a word for it. I mean, there's like multiple words for it. It's like disbelief, you're proud, you're sad, you're confused, you're just there.
Yeah.
Like, I was
You're
just,
there, and it's a tent pole, and it's a tent pole event in your life. No matter how old
Mhm.
you get, you will always remember. Like, I remember when I was driving home, I was like, so I just, I. Because when I went home, I was like, okay, I think I'm done, but I'm gonna go to practice one more time. I don't know why I went to practice.
You went to practice.
I went to practice for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and Wednesday happened to be Valentine's Day. So I officially retired on Valentine's Day. But yeah, I went just to make sure that like was making sure that I still felt the same way, and I did. I didn't feel anything at practice. I just was kind of going through the motions. I think I'd already made my decision, but yeah, it's a weird thing. Not many people experience that because when you're stopping college, it's the same, but you also know it's coming.
Yes.
But as a professional, unless you've like set a date for I'm done after this Olympics, it's like, well, okay, well, if you don't want to make the Olympics, then you have to deal with those feelings as well. So it is, like you said, it's just weird for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, you mentioned that the hard part wasn't necessarily leaving competition, but figuring out who you are without the quote unquote athlete label. So, what helped you kind of start piecing who Natalie is outside of athletics?
Oh, summer, I'm still like doing it. It's like a year and what is this, May now? Yeah, it's been a year and a few months, and I kid you not, like I had an epiphany last week. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, so I don't want to do that either, like as a job, but
Yeah.
it is a multifaceted process that I'm learning about on learning things and taking things that you have learned with you in the future and rebuilding and reframing how you operate in a different space. It is completely different. You're going from a black and white world to a very gray world where you could literally do whatever you want.
Hmm.
I could do whatever I wanted after this call, and nobody can tell me as long as it's not illegal. But like, I could do whatever I want. I could go run a mile. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna, but I could go run a mile. I could go apply for a different job. I could quit my job. Like, there's literally too many options for me.
Yeah.
So this process has been overwhelming to say the least. Um, Empowering. It's been discouraging. Um, it's been a learning experience. I had a job in medical device sales and ended up learning I don't want to be in healthcare. Um, but I think the thing to keep in mind that has kind of helped me throughout this is like I swam for 20 something years.
Yeah.
And if I did that in a job, I'd probably be like president of a company by now. And so I've really kind of adapted that mindset of like, okay, I'm in lessons right now. I'm trying to learn like the best way to do freestyle, or I'm relearning breaststroke right now. And I have a lot of really good people who support me, and my village is so amazing. It's made up of a lot of diverse people, people who are athletes, people who are CEOs of companies, people who have nothing to do with swimming. And so it's been really nice to like hear their point of view. Um, and just learn. Like I think in one of my blog posts I talked about like framing frustration as curiosity, and
Yeah.
that's not an overnight fix, but it definitely helps like when you sit with your feelings, because these are things that are coming up like you don't know why they're coming up. Like
Hmm.
um the feeling of failure when you decide that a job's not for you.
Hmm.
Most people who weren't swimming did this in their 20s. And here I am at 31 or 30 last year, but like trying to figure out like what is Natalie Hinds going to do for the rest of her life. And there's not one answer that can be given. I could do multiple things, and the things that you prioritize, I was like, I need to catch up on money. And then I realized I don't prioritize money over a work-life balance. And I had to learn that. And
Yeah.
so you just kind of have to keep that curious energy at the forefront of everything. It's really hard because I want to be the best at everything like the day after I started, and that's just
Yeah.
not a real thing. So the process, there's really no process for me. It's kind of just sitting with my feelings, and my boss at my current job has said something really cool. She's like, you're either a think to talker or a talk to thinker. And it's been really helpful for me to talk out things, whether I'm telling my boyfriend and he's just a brick wall listening to me vent. It's been very helpful because, like, that's how I figure things out. So just kind of sitting with my feelings and venting, and that's kind of been very helpful. So I'm at a better place now. I love where I work. I'm learning something every day. It has been it's been humbling experience for sure.
Yeah, no, it's incredible because, we spend so many of our years swimming to the point where we are confident that, we can perform and we know that we're the best of our sport when you compete in college and when you went
Mhm.
to the Olympics, that when you're done, you are in a sense having to learn a new skill from scratch. You compare it to seasonal swimming or summer league swimming. Like we're in our summer league swimming phases right now.
Yeah.
It's difficult not to feel behind sometimes and not compare yourself to others who may have started their journey a little bit earlier, but also just going back into that trial and error process where, like, I've had numerous jobs that I have left after a couple of months just because you kind of immediately, not immediately, you try it out, but you know that something's not clicking.
Honestly, you probably know after like 30 days. Like after you've been onboarded and you've like done a job for a little bit. Like I knew I didn't want to do medical device probably like a month and a half into the job because I saw you just learn like what is important to you.
Yeah,
And I was like, I want to help people. That's my MO.
yeah,
There's a myriad of ways you can help people, and I thought that medical device sales was going to help me, like that was going to fulfill me because in a sense you're helping people. But I then learned from that job, like, I want to inspire people. I want to help them that way instead of put people back together. And so I learned that. I checked that off my list. And so, yeah, it sucks because, you know, you're doing something that you're not passionate about. And like, that's
yeah.
the thing with swimming. Like, we love swimming. We're passionate about it. Even like you said earlier, in a plateau situation, you still show up every day and you give your all.
Mhm.
Um, And when you're not passionate about something, it's really for me personally, it's really hard to just like show up every day and like want to
Yes.
do it. I'm trained that way because of swimming, but I just am like, yeah, I don't want to see people at their worst every day. That's not something that like, you know, shout out to all the nurses and all the medical personnel, but it's just not for me.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, you learn very quickly if you like it or not for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. You mentioned how tough it is to let go of the structure and control that came with being an athlete to becoming more adaptable. Was there a moment within kind of transitioning from Natalie the swimmer to, I mean, you're the same person, but to
Yeah.
now Natalie when things felt especially uncertain? And how did you kind of find your footing within that space?
Um, Yeah, so like I remember a month after I stopped swimming, I was like all over the place in the sense of I allowed myself to like not have an alarm, not do anything for like a period of time. I want to say like 2 weeks because we all deserve that. Like you
Yeah.
just deserve to just be. I think a month after I stopped swimming was when I started like losing my identity and I was like, so what what am I like what do I stand for? You know? And you really have to like sit down and like write a list of what are your values now because they might have changed and like what are your goals and for me I love writing things out so um a month out things felt uncertain. I think a way I like brought myself back in was like writing things out and also having something in my life that was not changing. So like working out for me is never going to change.
Yeah.
I always will work out first thing in the morning. Or like you said, to be adaptable, maybe it's not first thing, maybe it's at lunch or whatever, but I will work out at least 5 to 6 times a week. And that's something that was very constant for me and that kind of helped me. Um, at least have some structure in my life. And it really helps. Like my partner, he's a very structured guy. He's a strength coach here at UF, and so he's obviously big on wellness. He's big on like routines, and so I really had to lean on him for sure that first like 6 months to like be like the driving force some days, honestly, because it's just hard to go from all of that to nothing and now you're in charge. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so this is like what it's like to be an adult. You like have to be in charge, which is very overwhelming at first, but it goes back again to your village. Like they will always be the people who are like holding you up. So that's kind of how I found my footing.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because when you are swimmers, like you said, so much of your life is kind of pre-structured to where when you're done swimming, you do have almost too much control. To
Yeah.
where finding something that grounds you, at least finding some sort of routine, has definitely helped me. I took the running
Yeah.
aspect, unfortunately. I know swimmers are like, I'm
Oh,
never,
you run now?
unfortunately, but I love it.
That's
But it's
crazy.
the same thing. It's the structure, it's something that you can control even when the rest of your life may be uncontrollable. There's a lot of younger athletes that, look up to Olympians and they look up to you. To a young athlete listening right now who may be just finishing their swimming career and is scared about what comes next, what advice would you say to them?
This is a great question because I have a great answer, and it's very simple. If you've just stopped swimming and you're like obviously not sure what to do next, honestly, I implore you to like write three lists. One of them is things that you like, and it could literally be anything. You can get as granular or as broad as you want. Like on my list, I literally was like, I like tacos. I like working out. I like helping people. The second list is what you do not like, things that you know about yourself that you don't like. I redid it after I stopped medical device sales. And I was like, I do not like the healthcare system. I do not, just like very, very plainly. And the third list is what are you good at?
Yeah.
And sit with those three lists, maybe add to them, maybe move something around, but that's where you can start to like angle careers that don't include the things you don't like. They include the things you like, and they include things that you're good at. And I found that's kind of how I found the job I'm in now. And even now, it's like I find that I'm learning things about what I like and don't like. Like the list progresses. Now that I'm exposed to more stuff in the ad industry and being a project manager, it's like, okay, do I want to pursue and get my like PMP, which is kind of like the next step of being a project manager?
Mhm.
Um, or do I want to go into sports or do I want to, so it like keeps evolving, but I would start there with those three lists.
Yeah. And it's never too late to start over. And I mean that's kind of what almost every athlete is doing once they hit the wall. But in a sense, it's not starting over because you have so many character traits that you picked up from being in the water, time management, dedication, everything that you learned will translate to your life. And I
Hmm.
think when I stopped swimming, it's almost like I gaslighted myself into thinking that I didn't like certain things or that I had
Yeah.
to be involved in this because that's, where I was pushed to do. So really making those lists and sitting with yourself and realizing that it's okay to change the list too. Like it doesn't have to be set in
We all
stone.
struggle with that for sure. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I used to always love this. Like, I don't really love it anymore. And it's okay. Like, it's totally fine.
Yeah. What legacy do you hope to leave, not just in swimming, but in the way you've kind of approached life and, life outside of the pool?
Um, for my legacy outside of the pool, like I obviously have an answer for in the pool, but for out of the pool, I just want to leave a legacy of like excellence in all shapes and forms. Like, I really want people to remember me as someone who like was very empathetic, someone who knew how to talk to all sorts of people and who knew how to meet people where they're at. Um, Someone who just exudes excellence and poise, I feel like is how I would like to be remembered.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I can tell like this is our first time talking, and I can 100% say that that is the impact that you do leave on people.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I s- one thing that I did take with me when I left medical device sales, like I was obviously distraught because I was like, oh my God, like I failed at this. I only
Yeah.
lasted like 6 months. But one of the things I took from it and that I told my boss literally while we were having our last conversation was like, it literally wasn't the people. I loved the people. I loved the doctors, the nurses. I loved working with everyone. It just was like I was not passionate about the work. And I had a great boss. We still talk to this day. And I think that shows like the type of, the way that you treat people. Do they st like it goes beyond a transactional paycheck or
Yes.
like roles in a job, but um he was like, and that's okay. Like, it's okay that this is not your passion. And, being honest about it, I think was the best thing too. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, in any job, I think relationships are the most important. Obviously you need to do a good job, but that's how people are going to remember you. Like, how did you treat them? So that's kind of what I keep in mind when I meet someone new, or if I'm in a situation where I don't know anyone. I'm just like, okay, try to like meet them where they're at, even though I'm uncomfortable. Like it's all gonna work out in the end. But that's kind of like how I think about like approaching problems and people and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you will be surprised at how much common ground you have with someone who you think you are a complete opposite to. So, like
Hmm.
going into those conversations and just, I truly like learning about people because everyone does have such a different story and you can relate to
Oh,
their
for
story
sure.
in some capacity. But
Yeah.
those
Yeah, you're
impacts.
learning about a lot of people.
Oh, I am. And it's so much fun, connecting with different people in the swimming world, aspects of swimming that I had no idea even existed because,
Hmm.
you're solely focused on, you are a little selfish when you're a swimmer. You're focused
Have
on
to be.
your result. And so learning about, competitors who I swam against, I interviewed Becca Mann and we were like arch
Mhm.
nemesis when I was swimming and she's so fun and
Yeah.
she's so cool. And it's amazing to connect with people like that and like yourself. I just want to take another second to thank you for coming on today. I know anyone who listens to this conversation, whether they're involved in the sport in any capacity, coaching, still swimming, or approaching the experience of touching the wall for the last time, they're definitely going to get something out of it. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, Summer, thank you so much for having me. I hope somebody takes one good thing from today. And yeah, I really appreciated our conversation.
Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Natalie. I know she had a lot of great insights from not only her journey in the pool to now transitioning to her life outside of being a professional athlete. I know the transition from sport to non sport is extremely challenging and the waters are forever changing. So give yourself some grace, give yourself some time to really reflect on your career and know that just because you're transitioning from one point in your life, it doesn't mean that it's over. There are still more exciting things to come. One thing that resonated with me was Natalie's mention of her lists. That's definitely something that I'm going to do right after this. And also know that your lists are forever changing. Something that you liked when you were 10 years old, you may no longer like now. So be sure to stay up to date on those lists as well, and they will help you navigate the changing waters of life in general. So if you liked this podcast, please give us a like, a comment, and share with any of your swimming friends who may be navigating change in their life, or even someone who may be transitioning with something different. As always, a big thank you to the International Swim Coaches Association and also Swimming World Magazine. Without their help, this podcast would not be possible. Please be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. I will list them here so you can easily follow along. And I will catch you guys next week.